All right, good morning and welcome to the channel. Today we're off to a bit of an early start, and thank God winter's coming to a close. So today I decided to go over probably the best information that I can offer most of you on the market. And that information is in terms of policy and procedure when dealing with housing authorities, how they arrive at their decisions, how they address certain issues throughout your use of the Section 8 voucher, including the application process. Now, I've talked very exclusively about policy and procedure, including Code of Federal Regulations, state and city ordinance, as well as law. So today, I'm going to introduce one of the best manuals out there to kind of address this. Now, let's keep in mind that, you know, I'm going to make the topic as it's titled Terminations and Appeals. But since I do not have manuals for every state and county in the U.S., and nor would I want to have all those, I think that we'll use something representative of that. And we're going to use the largest housing authority in America, which would be New York. And then this is going to be able to guide you into the information you're going to need, whether you're trying to complete a FOYA, which is a Freedom of Information Act, or whether you're requesting direct manuals from the administrative plan or a briefing book. So those are kind of the things we're going to go over this morning. And you're going to be able to enlighten yourself about your own case, because the information I'm going to release is going to lead you to what you need, and you won't find better information out there. So in regards to the video, this is going to be low-income Section 8 housing terminations and appeals. The ultimate goal is to release the entire playbook for the known housing authorities in America. And to do that, we need to understand how they make their decisions, their policies, and so on. And now, you can take this information and then you can start asking your housing authority to release what you're going to need, okay, under FOIA or open public request for your specific housing authority. So, moving on from that real quick, I want to grab a link real quick and have you follow along with me so you can start understanding. So, first thing first, in order to get really good information from housing authorities that they're not going to put on the display table at the front door, you're requesting under FOIA or Freedom of Information Act their administrative plan. That should probably be pretty extensive, sometimes up to 1,300 pages, but in most cases, several hundred pages. This will tell you operably how that PHA works, but the golden nugget here, the one thing that all you guys have been trying to figure out for years and years and nobody knows how to do, I know how to do. So what you're looking for is the briefing book. Not you already have the administrative plan. What you need is the briefing book. And so I'm going to go ahead and put that link in there for you. Let's see if I can get it copied real quick. Now we're going to do the briefing book for New York and paste. All right, so that's going to be roughly 112 pages of pure glory. This will be the entire briefing book for state of New York and NYCHA. Now, if you get your briefing book from your housing authority, if you will skip down to approximately number 87 on the PDF, this takes a minute. Now, just so you guys know, I like to fly by the seat of my pants, which means I'm not going to organize my videos. If you need somebody that does hair, lipstick, and looks like they come from Eyewitness News, you're in the wrong channel, okay? I often fly right by the seat of my pants. I'm quite comfortable that way, delivering information that way. So I'd advise you to pull out your dollar store ink pen or a pencil, take notes, okay? All right, so we're getting there, getting closer. All right, so it looks like it's going to be on page 87. When you get into PDF, if you look directly below the pages, they're numbered. So page 87, you'll find termination. So I'm going to go ahead and we're going to do a read along. Now, what I call all this when you're dealing with these policies and procedures, like the briefing book that most of you are unilaterally unaware of that even exists, which is pretty much how they're handling everything within your case. That's the primary thing that you're really going to want. So, all right, so let's move over and we're going to do a reading of the Bible for the Housing Authority of New York in determining whether to terminate your assistance. PHA has the discretion to consider circumstances in your particular case. These circumstances include the seriousness of the case, the extent that the family members participated in were responsible for the actions leading to the termination, and the effects of that determination of assistance, which will have which on other family members who were not involved in the action or failure to act. As a condition of continued assistance, HPD may prohibit family members who participate in or were responsible for action or failure to act in living in the units. HPD must terminate your assistance at 180 days, 6 months have elapsed. HPD at last has half payment was made because the family portion of rents equals the contract rent. This is commonly referred to as no rent hardship and zero subsidy. So as you start to see here, you'll be able to lodge your complaint and appeal on the basis of actually using our terminology. The reason I'm covering HPDs is because if you've looked at enough of these, and let me go ahead and put this up. Here's a QR code of my company. And so I'll do a quick introduction. My name is Jay. I'm the owner of Section8Consulting.com. You can find the QR code here. Let's see if I can pull this down real quick. Get it up. There we go. So you put your camera phone and you open up your camera app, and then you zoom in on this, and it should bring up a link to the company website. I've been in business about 26 years. I retired in January. So 26 years in the industry. My YouTube channel has been around before any other channel ever existed in terms of this. So I've released a Pandora's box of information related to policy, procedure, legislation to help you guys, to give you the tools you need. And they're not tools, they're weapons. You're weaponizing your case and dealing with PHAs and public housing authorities toe to toe based on their own policies and procedures, and not just what your grievances are. Okay. So moving on back from there, I digress, I guess. And so we're going to go on. If your family has been absent in the assisted unit for more than 180 consecutive days in a 12-month period under any circumstance, any family member that has been convicted of manufacturing or producing methamphetamine on the premises of a federally assisted housing, HPD discovers that a member of your family household is subject to a lifetime sex offender registration requirement, and or your family subsequently refuses to remove the ineligible family member from the household. Any family member that fails to sign and submit consent forms obtaining information HPD requires. The reason I'm covering this from HPD is because, like I said earlier, when I kind of digressed, is what you're seeing here under this playbook is pretty much what you're going to see in most PHAs, okay? Because they're following federal guidance. And if they're having their policies and procedures underwritten by the primary company in the US, which would be NAN, N-A-N-M-K, which pretty much writes all policy, procedure, administrative plans, briefing books, which is the housing authority Bibles, I like to coin it as, then you'll already have a really good understanding. So I'm not going to read every part of this, but I'm going to say this. As you get further down, they have termination by owner, termination by them, missed appointments and deadlines. So it covers an extensive amount of information. And then you move into appeals, and it tells you exactly how to do so. So some of the first steps for you guys as you're reviewing this link to the briefing book, I would recommend when dealing with a PHA, before you argue any point with them and you're up for termination or you've been notified, is first shut your mouth. Don't argue shit with these people. Okay. Go immediately, and then you want to compose a letter specifically with your name and all your information on there, current date. Make sure that you got a tracking number. Don't make these people sign for it because they don't have to. Okay. Put a tracking number, and then you're going to request two separate pieces of information. Number one, you would like to complete a most current copy of the administrative plan. And then number two, you would like the most complete and comprehensive copy of the briefing book or the briefing. Now, in the early days, they used to give this to you. They don't do that anymore. Subjectively, it gives you too much power to wield when you understand how their decision-making process works. So I know we preached a lot in this channel in terms of administrative plans. That does tell you a lot, but the briefing is really the golden goose here. But in addition to that, addressing policy and procedure through Nana McKay can further give you more information than you're ever going to get from HUD.gov, okay? So these three combined factors will help you be able to fight appeals in terms of having terminations, whether it's from a private landlord, project based, or whether it's over your housing choice voucher. And it shows in structure the rules they go by, the rights to terminate, and how you can appeal that process. In fact, of this briefing book, which I again call the Housing Authority Bible, this for HPD is 112 pages. It can be much more extensive, up to 700 pages. In my career, dealing roughly 4,300 housing authorities, I would estimate that I probably have around 300 of these. And the problem is, you got to get the most current copies. So, being having a large database doesn't mean jack. These things change frequently, almost yearly, and sometimes seasonal, depending on the PHA. Mainly, the reason they change so frequently and they update them is because every time you guys went against them, they're going to change policies to ensure they close out loopholes, which would give them an unfavorable position. That's why you always don't just indicate that I need an administrative plan or a briefing book or the briefing guide for the PHA. You need to request the most current copy that's there. If you don't indicate that, they can give you anything. They can give you something from 1987. Okay. And so if they fail to do so under Freedom of Information Act, then you have a court case in which you can lodge a lawsuit against them for whatever small claims offers by video appointment and default judgment, and give the order to judge to order that they send this to you. Okay. In addition to that, for professional misconduct, you can also file at Office of Inspector General HUD. Fairly good complaint, because Freedom of Information Act is not discretionary. They have to give it to you. And I recommend that you follow a guideline of giving 14 to 30 days for response. If they fail to respond, then give them a second letter requesting the same information. If they fail, then take their ass to court. They will lose. Okay. In most cases, PHAs do not show up for court. Only in less than 0.5% of cases that I ever dealt with have I ever even seen them even show up. And half the time, they send Better Call Saul lawyers, strip mall lawyers that come with an empty vanilla folder and not much to add to the argument. And so they often lose. So don't be so scary about dropping them in small claims, okay? And once you got them there, if they fail to comply under a judge's order, then that's when you can get into monetary values up to 40K, depending on which county you're in. So the reality of it is, before you can fight a war, you need to have the playbook, an administrative plan, the briefing book, and also policies and procedures through Nan and McKay, as well as looking up Title 24 and reading it in entirety. If you're going to walk around blindsided and hope that you're going to appeal on the basis that these people have humanity, that they're going to sympathize with it, you're crazy. Okay. So if you show up for the war, don't bring a knife to a gunfight, because they love when you do that. Oh, I'm going to call you and report you to HUD. That's about the same as spraying mace in their face. I would advise pulling out the shotgun. That way they understand the first time you shoot that this is a serious crisis. Now, I have reviewed some of these Mickey Mouse YouTube channels out there, and I don't mean Mickey Mouse in terms of not such a great deliverance of the video, but none of them understand what a briefing book is. In fact, I'm probably the first person ever to bring that to YouTube, but that also shows you the reason I've been around so long is because I don't bring tips and tricks. I don't advise you to bring a pop and a pizza to the housing authority and then wish and pray that while you're in indenturement that you get freed from it. I bring you the real policies and procedures that actually win cases. I know that because I've been flown around the country and I've testified in many cases. Okay. And I can tell you, I've had more law firms over the years contact me because it's easier to get it from me than it is for them to sit down and figure out federal code. And I'll tell you something about lawyers. They're great at anything that makes them money, but they don't like to practice the kind of law where they know their clients don't have money. Why do you think they often subcontract to stuff out to offices like mine? And so that's the reality we look at. So for those of you that are well researched, well read, have a fine understanding of how to do appeals and hearings, then I would advise reading this. While it may not be specific to your specific region, it's going to open your eyes. Look, this is almost a carbon copy of almost what every housing authority is looking at in terms of policy and procedure. And so learning here is going to motivate you to want to get this from your PHA. That way, before you overreact with a nasty conversation and a caseworker, you actually have the policy in place. They also at that point will mark your file, your caseworker will mark your file that this lady is well apprised and she's a risk. We have to be on our P's and Q's. That's exactly how you go from being indentured on the plantation to owning the plantation. Okay. If you're going to have power and you're actually going to want to win a case, you're going to need this kind of information. So while I'm not going to go through all the appeals and hearings with you guys today, and we're not going to go completely through determinations, I think that most of you can read. And again, let me put up that link so you can see it. And I would advise looking through the video several times. Okay. This is not a joke what I'm talking about. This is not a tip or a trick. This is precisely 120% beyond accurate in terms of what you're going to need to fight. All right. I'm also going to put my QR code again because I know not everybody has the time, the energy, or even maybe you're frazzled and your mental health isn't the best, or maybe you're a busy person. If you need help with this, I'll offer short appointments. 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes. I don't offer casework anymore. I'm not going to go out and fight your court case. I'm not going to spend 12 months doing anything. Okay. But here's a QR code. Yep. That's about as professional as it gets with me. And y'all should congratulate me because I'm old school. It took me a while to even do QR codes. Okay. So there's lots of fancy channels that have excellent lighting and they've got a $4,000 microphone, but very few can deliver what I do deliver in my videos. And that's the exact information you're going to need. That's the difference between a rodeo clown on YouTube that pretends to be a consultant and one that's been in the field 26 years. As far as I know, there aren't any real consultants on YouTube except for me. I'm not seeing one of them that can prove any credential outside of copying my videos. And they're pretty terrible at times. Sometimes they're laced with profanity. Sometimes I may not even take a great shave. And these days, because I retired back in January, I can be quite unruly in my videos. But if you can put up with all my nuisance, including my fat face, I think you'll find a wealth of information in more than 1,500 videos over we'll be running 20 years pretty soon on YouTube. Okay. That's before Bob and Nancy and their fidget spinner channel decided to convert into a Section 8 expert with a PhD. Now, we all know they're lying, but that's all right. We like clowns. They're good for parties. All right, so I'm going to move on to comments now that I've insulted, offended, and educated. Good morning, Muskogee Land watching. Pippi Livestock Hajj. Good morning. And sorry, guys, no cats today. They're still protesting. So, and by the way, if you're wondering about all the holes in my chair, it's simple. My cats, they love leather and pleather. They pop holes in it. So we're having a moment of judgment because I didn't do my hair and lipstick in my chair isn't a $900 fancy chair, and I don't have $4,000 in lighting in the background. Well, that's the reason. I put my money into things that live and breathe, and then in return they tear all my shit up. So, all right, PCP WC1. Good morning. Sheila Neal, good morning, Jay, and everyone on the line. Chat. Pippi Longstock's taking notes. Good deal. Muskogee Land, I will contact you soon. It's worth. Is it worth to sue the Muskogee Housing Authority? It's always worth suing them. You got to look, guys. You don't realize housing authorities have a very limited budget. When you pull the administrative plan and you look at your financials for the year for your have these housing authorities, you can pretty much ruin them in just one small claims court. In other words, you'll cook every extra dollar they've got. Most of them don't stand a chance. Sometimes you guys are just too scary. I mean, look, my office was probably involved in client cases and small claims court hundreds of times, if not probably approaching 1,000. One day I'll have to look it up if I get bored. But these days, like I said, I'm retired, so I'm not going to fight the battle with you. I'll advise you and tell you where you need to go, what you need to get, how to do it. My short appointments, but the days of me flying around the country and putting 400 hours into a case, that's over with. I've got better things to do with my time. So let's go. Man, I was ready to let the abuse go on when I moved to Santa Fe, but getting the $350 bill really pissed me off. I bet it did. Attain. I have a question. May I ask? My sister got a call from Section 8 Fraud Division and told her she might have to pay $1,400 back in money, but my sister submitted paperwork They never called her back. Well, there's kind of a rule with that. If typically if they received the information and they never brought it back, if you have more than 90 days passed, you should be okay. Now, if you went through an appeal, an informal appeal there with the housing authority, typically same thing. If you haven't heard back in about a month, then you can just forget about it. It's over with. They don't. Housing authorities don't even show you the courtesy of acknowledgement, because the reason they're not going to acknowledge they fucked up is because that would be an admission of guilt. So it's easier for them to walk away and never do anything than for them to explain how they fucked it all up and then accuse you of something that wasn't right. However, if you want, go ahead and put in a demand letter with a tracking number. You've accused me of such. I need to know the final result of this. Do you intend on taking action or not? I'm requesting all copies of the termination. Okay? I hope that helps you a little bit. Ms. Cody Land, I had to get myself out of that horrible building first, literally get to safety. I understand. I tell you, while they investigate, but they never called back, and she didn't get a letter. Yeah, they probably realized you probably proved your case and they just walked away. If you're waiting for them to say they're sorry, they're not going to, okay? Be glad that it's ending that way. Preston, what book is that again? Is called, let me get you a copy here real quick. There's a link up here if you want to scroll back as well, guys. It's going to be a briefing book. So 3 things. Order under open public request or FOYA, Freedom of Information Act. 1, the most current copy of the administrative plan. Number 2, most current copy of a briefing book or the Housing Authority briefing. And then number 3, you should visit Title 24 and read through that. And number 4, before you stop, go ahead and stop by NAN, N-A-N, and McKay website that underwrites all the policies and procedures for roughly 70% of the nation's housing authorities. You put all those things together, you now reach the level where you can wash the dishes in my office. So it means you have all the guides. It doesn't mean you're actually going to be that practical with them, but it's like I always tell people, you can have a broken car and go down there and get a manual from the library to fix your transmission, right? But it isn't going to make you a mechanic. It doesn't mean you have all the tools. It doesn't mean you have the experience. That's why I always advise you guys reaching out to my office before you take a loaded gun, take a knife to a gunfight, because just because you have this stuff doesn't always mean you're going to be able to fight your case practically. But this is a really good step of understanding of being apprised of your rights and understanding what the outcomes would be and understanding what the policy and procedures are. It's a whole nother thing in practice. Look, in my early career, the first 5 to 10 years, clients were more like test dummies for me. I had to bounce lots of things off the wall to see how to punish housing authorities under many circumstances. I had to bounce out of 300 things, maybe only 2 or 3 things worked. But once I figured out what worked, I became quite effective as a consultant, and I spent the following 16 forward years completely fucking housing authorities as many ways as I could for clients, because I quite enjoyed it, because this is not supposed to be this convoluted. Also, this information should be readily available. But when you run a really super shady housing authority and you like being a dictator, you know what I'm saying? When you run it like Hitler, then hey, this is what we end up with. So then I have to tell you things that shouldn't even be a secret and how to do it. Because why? The housing authority isn't going to teach you shit. It's better when they keep you barefooted, whether you're a boy or a girl. They keep you barefooted because it's easy for them to win against you when you don't know what your rights are, even how to even get the information. And then some of them are so scary, they still operate like the Wild West. And let's bring up the Wild West actions here. There hasn't been a lot of oversight over Section 8 and housing authorities for nearly 50 years. This is the first time they've been put in check by a president, and they're all under audit. Okay, it started with the immigration audits, but the real audit is to figure out all the fraud and all the misconduct, professional misconduct. And let me tell you, a lot of housing authorities are becoming insolvent. They're having to close, and many more are having many, if not all, employees indicted for everything from theft and so on. And so 2026 will be about the fall of many housing authorities. Many are being put in receivership. In other words, they're firing the board of directors. The feds are seizing their entire portfolios, and then they're turning over their services to professional companies like Nana McKay that treat people with respect. And I'm a big advocate of Nana McKay. They don't do a perfect job, but I can tell you, you'd be treated better by those people than you ever would by the prostitutes they hire to work at your local housing authority. And again, I want to express one thing. There are housing authorities that operate very ethically and have really good employees. I'm not saying all housing authorities hire hookers and drug dealers, okay? But many do, and so why do I use such extreme terms? Well, I'm explaining it in hundreds of videos. I have a little respect. I've watched hundreds of thousands of people through my career, both personally through my company and outside my company, deal with other companies, and people have been damaged by the system, and it's pretty awful. So this is why through my retirement, I'm releasing a lot of information and trying to help you navigate what ultimately would take you years to sit here and go and Google around and search around in the dark and hope you find it. And with as many frauds on YouTube that claim to be this and claim to be that, don't know shit about Section 8. You know how many creators, there's about 19 of them that copy my channel. I make a video, they turn around, and then they reduce it to nothing, to garbage. And then they call themselves a Section 8 channel. But the reality of it is, we got Nancy. She just got her GED out the bubblegum machine, and now she wants to be a Section 8 consultant. She opens up a channel and completely gives out fucking fraudulent information based on articles she read on YouTube. And then what do you end up with? So this is the game this is the passionate game we play on YouTube. So, with my exit on, I'm not exiting YouTube, but with my exit as a company from YouTube, only thing left on there is just a bunch of hecklers. That's it. I mean, there aren't any real consultants left that I have been able to identify on there. I just see people trying to get rich fast schemes. They want you to buy subscriptions, buy their little shitty book that, there was one guy, I think he created a Section 8 book. Look, that shit he got there, he straight copied and pasted some shit. Was 15 years old, put it in the book, and absolutely robbed a bunch of people over that. And people gobbled this shit up. I have to say, it's people love to get caught up in fraud. Anyways, so I'm done with that. I've already heckled the hecklers, but you're right there, Espresso. Knowledge is power. Betty's good morning, Jay and Kiki's. I wish I could have brought y'all some Kiki's today in the video. That'd have been nice, right? I'm feeling pretty good. I want to mention one other thing. I've been on a diet, and I'm going to bring this up now that we did second halves. For those of you that are not interested in the personal side of my story, this is where that happens. You go ahead and exit the video if you wish. Been on a diet, lost about 22 pounds the past month. And I want to bring up a few things for those of you considering GLP-1s, I think it's GPL-1s. The first month is pretty good. But then you start descending a little bit into chaos because you're going to have a lot of stomach problems. Okay. I was just sick for 9 days. I mean, it's like every other day. It messes your stomach up. And you have lots of problems. Trust me. I've had the maid come out here many times just to help me out because it's hard to even get out of bed. There's a big cost of fooling with these drugs. Now, because I was at 298 pounds, it was quite appropriate. It wasn't like I was a thin person trying to lose 5 pounds, right? This was perfectly recommended. It was suitable to avoid a 15% chance of a heart attack or stroke, right? So I didn't engage this idea. My doctor engaged it with me as a faster track. Yep, comes with risk like all pills. Every drug on the market has risk. So I'm going through those risks. So far, the risks aren't so bad. But you should consider all options. And if you're not that fat, you're not 300, close to 300 pounds, it may not be a good idea. So I just want to bring that up as I go through this journey. And I'm kind of at a standstill. I'm at 162, down from 198, and kind of I'm on a sticking spot there. But after being sick 9 days, I'm not in a big hurry. Okay. Let's just say I did good the day before. I had to call somebody to help me yesterday because I felt so bad. It was awful, absolutely awful. Ran all the way till 9 o'clock at night. You spend a lot of time with the toilet. Okay. So, anyways, we're gonna leave that topic alone. Kiki's are doing well. I want to bring up my kitten that most of you are familiar. We rescued Miss Diamond. Quick update about her. She's not pregnant. She just has a passion for food. So I suppose of all the cats that I own, she will be another one that will have to cut the trailer side of the trailer out and then pull her out of there, right? Because she's gained triple her weight. I suspected pregnancy, but it's not. It's just her passion to eat. When you rescue cats that have been possibly in the wild, she appears to have been at some point on her own and live near fast food because she can eat anything. She'll eat a Pringles chip. She'll eat salad. She'll eat tomatoes. She even got my Slim Fast the other day. It's not Slim Fast, but it was the Equate version of it. I called her licking, lapping that up. I'm like, look, you don't need diet. So you can't leave anything alone with her. And she puts on a hissy fit when I'm late. She expects treats about 8 times a day. And when you're retired and you're home a lot, you turn into a vending machine. The cats try to test you to see how many times they can get food from you. And when they don't get it, they moan, yip, and everything else. And they also do guilt trips. Like I leave for 5 minutes to go to the gas station or somewhere. They'll sit in that lawn, right at the tip of the lawn by the street, and sit there like they're monitored, like I'm a child. Well, where did you go? So everybody's in the front lawn waiting. I appreciate them missing me, but I don't think they're missing me. They just wondering when the next meal's coming. So, anyways, all right, I'm gonna move back into comments here, guys. I thought I'd just share a little bit of personal stuff for those of you that enjoy our channel for other reasons. Some of my subscribers just come because I talk badly in my videos, sometimes with profanity, so y'all enjoy the spicy. Some of you come for the cats. I've had people tell me, hey, Jay, I'm not even into Section 8. I just come here for your cats and your chairs. I think we got one. I just heard some clawing. Well, I missed it. Anyway, let's move into comments real quick before I get on out of here. DT Holmes 85. This was part of my settlement in court back in October. They wrongfully terminated my voucher and they said they would give a top preferential status for HCB and that the wait list is anticipated. Okay, I'm glad to hear that you've got a settlement. Sheila Neal. I noticed in Florida, certain counties in Florida, Section 8 opening. I'm still wondering if on Miami. Let me tell you something that I saw play out for Miami that was the most stunning thing I've seen in my career. Out of all places in America, Miami, a population, I forget the population, let's say it's 500,000 people. Do you know roughly 1/4, 25% of all residents of the city of Miami applied for a voucher? That is a big fucking problem. 25%. Now that means that things must be completely unaffordable there. The reason I say that is because when I look at statistical data and how many people apply for vouchers in any given city, including major cities, you're getting numbers in 1 to 4%. For 1/4 of a population of a city to apply for vouchers, and at the time, I think they were less than 5,000, that's a problem. I'm going to warn you guys in Florida. If you live in South Florida, meaning Orlando, Miami, Fort Lauderdale, any of these major cities, the future is pretty bleak. The rich have moved in. The prices are going up. Even if you win things in those cities down there, the same thing that people laughed and joked about that happened in California is happening right now in Florida. Okay? Florida is no longer the retirement state unless you're wealthy. And so South Florida is a high risk. And while you may feel empowered to get a voucher there and use it, now we have to look at whether or not you're going to be able to sustain that year after year with the raises. I've got people contacting my office every day about the state of Florida and in the South part that are indicating to me that it was affordable until the rent gets boosted every year. In some cases, the housing landlord is giving pre-approval without even giving notice. And so I'm going to caution you guys about the whole thing. Still people calling me, Jay, I just want to move to Florida. Let me go to, St. this and St. that, St. Lucie. And I'm like, look, you might edge your foot in there right now, but what's going to happen in 10 years? You're going to end up renting you're going to be living in mini storage. You guys have got to, I know people don't want to be separated from families and friends, but look, if it's going to mean that you're going to make yourself homeless, then sometimes we have to be brave, pack our shit and move somewhere where you know it's going to be affordable for the next 20 years, especially if you're under 85. And I'm meeting a lot of resistance. Same thing when I'm with California clients. State of California over all my career represented roughly 40 to 50% of all the people that ever called my office. And, I would talk to people about all the money they received through the Social Security, disability, benefits, railroad retirements, and everything else. And I would watch these people rent a fucking broom closet in California, a broom closet, treated like the help, right? And could have moved to advise several other states. Yeah, that had no friends till they, just from the start, they moved, but their money would have gone a long ways, right? But instead of doing that, they appreciate continuing to live on $1, 50 cents in food stamps, and renting a broom closet. Look, guys, I understand the connection to people and family, but we're all adults. It just cannot be to your detriment. You sometimes you just have to move. And I think some of you are starting to realize that you're trying to hold on to everybody and keep them within shouting distance is going to cause a serious material effect on your life financially. Continuing to have the delusion that you're going to be able to afford to live in South Florida, California, New York, Jersey, or even Massachusetts, that's my hit list, those 5 states and cities, that's a problem. You're not going to make it 20 more years there. You're going to end up driving a car on 4 donuts, okay, with a crunched up dollar in your back pocket and wishing you had done this. I want to see you buy your wig from Temu, okay? Don't put yourself out like that. Maybe you got to move out in Oklahoma. So what? There are cows and all rigs out there, but at least your fucking rent's reasonable. Yeah, you got grandkids? Well, put them on video. Good on it. Yeah, got friends? That's fine. Go to local church. Try all the religions. I'm sure you'll make friends. Look, even I consider this. I'm in the state of Texas, and because I practice programs at the federal level, or did till January 1st, even here I'm watching what's playing out here in California. It's already played out in California, that is playing out currently in Florida. I'm not foolish. I understand that's going to play out in Texas, and it's quickly arriving. All these big companies in California are moving out here to Texas. Some of it's politics, some of it's money, but I'm watching things double bubble every year, double bubble. And so, I won't be surprised if I'm not living in a fucking RV by the time I'm retired, because nobody can work forever. And we all do face that. Make no mistake. That shit in the 50s, retirement and a 4-bedroom home. Now, let me tell you, I got 94-year-old people at Walmart out. I got people in the 80s frying chicken at Popeyes. Ain't nobody fucking retiring, okay? Unless you're independently wealthy. Not even me. You might see me prostituting at the red light when I'm 90, because look, at the pace we're going in America in certain cities, we don't really have a choice. And no, I'm not really going to prostitute at the red light, okay? But I'm just saying, consider all options. I'm too fat for that, right? Spin around the pool, put up my change cup, see if I can get a hit. But hey, these days we all have to look at that, because the minute you stop making money, it's a problem. So things become unaffordable. The Midwest is, what's left out here, and a lot of private equity is buying up mobile homes and everything. So the last few things in America that are affordable are becoming unaffordable. So it's tough business, right? Especially when you see grandma, she's turning tricks at the light. Why is this lady doing that? 103. She's on Social Security and still can't make it. That's why she's turning tricks. I posted 2 articles of women in their late 80s selling crack cocaine out their house. They're not drug users at all, but they realize the value of the dollar. How else is he going to pay the rent? One in New Jersey, one in Oklahoma, actually. I mean, how does that even happen? She's in there knitting and then selling methamphetamine. What the fuck is where are we going with things in America? So it's serious for all of us. And, even I worry. I'm not independently wealthy. Shit, I worry about things too. And the last thing I want to be doing is babbling in these videos when I'm 84. If you think I'm long-winded now, can you imagine me at 84? For sure I won't shut the fuck up. It'd be 9-hour video. It'd be marathons. I'll be lonely plus old and long-winded. That's going to create havoc on YouTube, right? So, hey, got to have a sense of humor if you're going to live in this world, right? The human experience. All right. So I'm glad you guys have enjoyed the video. I'm glad we had another long-winded one, but at least the first 10 minutes provided some diamonds and jewels. The rest of it was probably a little bit of shit in the toilet. But hey, the thing is, we're all here to learn, and that's what I like to do. If you enjoy our channel, subscribe, like the videos if you wish. That's the first time I've ever said it in any video. And also keep in mind, if you don't like long-winded, nobody forced you to continue to watch the whole hour, okay? If mommy didn't explain that when you were a young baby, you don't have to watch past 10 minutes. Get what you need and go. Okay, it makes no difference to me. This YouTube channel don't pay my bills. I do this stuff for free to help you guys. I'm not like these other freaks. Okay, I don't need the money that I'll make from YouTube. And to be frank with you, it might pay my electric bill. That's it. Okay, so I'm here because I care. Keep that in mind. All right, so let's finish out these comments. I know that I've said that 4 times, right? Thor's Paralegal, I know. Tune in to this channel. It's good, true, accurate data given the most handsome and witty host. Well, thank you. I'm always amused when people think I'm attractive. I thought when I reached 30, I stopped believing that I was attractive. Of course, I was a very self-centered little soul when I was young. It's funny how life changes as you get older. You get a little common sense, right? Sean Wines. Yes, I live in California. I was thinking about this. I'm glad you're thinking about it. It's good to start considering options. Espresso, is Texas a good state to move to? It is now, for now. And the reason why I'm going to say that is you want to get in the Tri-City area where you have Houston, Fort Worth, Dallas, and Austin. Now, Austin's kind of you can just mark it off the list. So you have these 3 major cities, which are in the top 5 cities in America. They're in a triangle in a 4-hour rolling zone. And in there, even the suburbs, you have 1 million or more. And we're not crammed up like you're in New York or New Jersey. And so the rents are still affordable. For a long time, just 15 years ago, we had rents as low as $600. You could rent a 4-bedroom house that was built 4-bedroom house, maybe 1 to 4 years old, for $1,100 to $1,200. Now it's maybe 15, 16. So you spend that much. Most of you guys are spending that much to rent a crack house, which is basically a single room with a microwave in it, right? You could come over here and rent a whole fucking house with a yard. You might not like your neighbors or the screaming children or barking dogs. Might see a dope dealer too, but hey, we have to have. I always tell people when you move a neighborhood, it's not complete unless you get at least 1 meth dealer. No matter what neighborhood you live in, I don't care. So that's acceptable risk. What I have a complaint is when there's competing meth dealers and crack dealers, right? So I only permit 1 dope dealer per block. It's fair investment, right? It only gets serious when there's more. When they start competing, that's when it gets bad. And if I see more than 2 prostitutes at the red light, it means it's a bad neighborhood. I only permit 1 prostitute and 3 homeless. Okay, that usually means there's still value left in the neighborhood. Of course, I'm joking, guys. All right, I have 2-bedroom voucher disability. Where do I go? Where do you think a good state is to move? Right now, I'm seeing the lowest rates across the southern states, but you have to be careful with that, okay? And then Oklahoma City right now is offering the best value I've seen. Some of the more not Chicago, but Illinois. If you get outside of Chicago, about an hour, almost all the other areas out there are very affordable. So, in fact, I'll tell you this: I dealt with hundreds of landlords every year. I can tell you that Illinois was a big target, not Chicago, not the big city, but a lot of the counties throughout Illinois was landlords were just gobbling up stuff because it's so affordable. So, state of Oklahoma won. Illinois was pretty good. Pennsylvania for a while in the outer areas. Now, I'm not saying anybody needs to be Amish, but hey, we got to look at quality of life, not just affordability. Would you enjoy being there? One time I was talking to a lady. We were talking about winning vouchers, and she told me she won one for Alaska. And I asked her why she hadn't used it. And she goes, "Well, I didn't want to be the only black woman in the state of Alaska." And I laughed because I failed to consider that, because I don't consider my clients in terms of color, right? I'm not that kind of guy. but it made a little bit of sense. So we had to port that because we look at quality of life, like people from Ukraine, Russia, Mexico, or Spanish. Everybody has quality of life, and so you may want to be around a population to better serve to the community things that you want to do. And so that's one thing. Affordability is another. Crime is another. That we have to look at. We all have our niches. I don't have many. When I look at housing, I just look at whether it's affordable, and I do look at the level: homelessness, prostitutes, and drug dealers, because I find they're there. They're in everybody's community. Okay, it's just there's an acceptable threshold, and then there's too much. Okay, and so I look at that. And I live in the state of Texas. We also have cartels. Okay, there's a whole lot of cartel activity out in the state, and the closer you get to El Paso, there's plenty too. That's why I tell people don't get in your car and run your mouth in traffic, because it isn't worth the bullet you're going to get in your head. People kill you out here, okay? And so if you're going to freak out, just pull over, say all the nasty shit, roll down your window and talk to the police, because it isn't worth losing your life doing it with another driver. So the state has good things and bad things. If don't let your renting be politically motivated, okay? That's the stupidest thing I've seen so far. Okay, I don't basing where you live based on voter cards is ridiculous. Okay, you should be looking at the quality of life, affordability, and whether the local community matches what you want to do and what you're going to enjoy and what you expect. Forcing yourself into projects and different things is not an idea. And we've talked about project-based housing as well through housing authorities, allowing the voucher to not only be in control of your voucher, but also living in their property means they have complete control of you. You're now living on a plantation where anytime you sass master, you're gonna get terminated. And so you're giving the housing authority too much. And the reason I put it in terms of that is because if you look at the parallels of what's happening with project-based housing and the housing authority also owning the building, it is a plantation. Okay? Not in terms of color and race, but it's a plantation where everybody's being indentured, where you cannot exercise your rights without being duly affected or kicked out. It's dangerous. You don't want to give housing authorities that kind of power over you. Not to mention, the housing authority's only goal when it owns a property is to make money. It offers itself its highest rent during the housing quality inspection when it'll offer a free and individual landlord half that rate. And then they don't like making repairs because it costs them money. And so you put yourself in a bad position. I think that housing authorities owning properties is a massive conflict of interest as well. I've mentioned that many times in videos because these are federal taxpayer dollars. Then why are my tax dollars being used to purchase a property for a housing authority and they get to keep the building? We waste a lot of money with that. If we got rid of all this project-based housing, we could double the amount of vouchers in America that are issued and then let everybody go live in private properties. But I also understand the constraints of not enough properties out there in landlords. And we can thank the 80s for that, when we had news act as racist and prejudicial as possible. And so through the 80s, there's a stigma that was assigned to Section 8. And because of that, a lot of landlords believe everything they hear when it's not reality. Nobody's going to wait on a waiting list 15 years to get a voucher and then turn around and smoke meth and tear up your building. Those are rare exceptions, but the news locked onto that in the 80s. And so here we are with a prejudicial concept behind Section 8. And so in the future, it's proven that we have less landlords who want to rent based on old information. And then I still watch these fucking videos from Mickey Mouse, fake ass people on YouTube making videos. I had one guy, this guy was going out to abandoned homes and pretending like he owned them and saying Section 8 renters had moved out. You see the kind of shit and fraud that goes on YouTube, all to make money. And so landlords watch these videos thinking, my God, that happened to that man's house. He didn't own that house. It was an abandoned house in Detroit. He made that video, lied to his fucking teeth, and then people gobbled it up, and then people believe that's real. A lot of the shit said about Section 8 renters is simply not true. I know that because I deal with enough of them. Now, if you said to me, hey, Jay, A lot of Section 8 clients have mental health issues, and then there are problems. I believe them. Lots of people have mental health crises, and they can be quite contentious to rent to and deal with. I believe that. But what I don't believe is everybody with Section 8 tearing shit up. Simply not true. I would say those cases only represent less than half or 1%. And let's also meter in one other factor. You know how those places got tore up like that? Because you had an idiot landlord, right? Here's an idiot. They leveraged all their money and their house to get a loan. Let me see how this worked out. So they went and bought an investment property. They decided they were the smartest fucking person in the room, right? They didn't need anybody's advice. They posted the property for Section 8, did no due diligence, didn't know rights, responsibilities, nothing. And then they thought, and then when they couldn't rent it for the high amount they wanted, nobody could afford to rent their shit, then they got desperate. And what did they do? They rented to somebody that nobody would ordinarily rent to. And then they got exactly what they fucking deserved. They got their shit tore up. That's how it happens. Because any landlord with any half an education would have understood from the beginning, never deal with desperate landlords. Because the more desperate they are means the more desperate the people that put in there. And then you don't get to cry later when they burn your shit down and tear it up. Okay, so those are how those stories, that's the real truth behind those stories. How would I know that? Well, looking at dealing with 1,000+ clients every year, plus landlords and everything else, that's how it happens. Look, I had a pastor couple, they bought up a property. It took me 6 months to evict it. Every single unit had drug dealers in it. So I see all kinds of things through my career. But I can tell you the sob story these landlords give. They never tell you, they tell you the story, but never the whole story. And then the rest of them are just frauds. They're just going to abandoned homes, videotaping this shit, and they don't even own the home. The reason it was tore up was homeless people moved into it. They never owned it. They never leased it to anybody. It's just a fake video. There's lots of that shit goes around. But unfortunately, Google is comprised of people that gobble shit up. They love the negative streak. I wish I could make my videos like just lie my ass off of my videos and make millions, right? But I don't know. I don't have time for that. My imagination isn't that good. All right, so going back to comments, and I promise I'll shut the fuck up and go on after this. So, hey, I'm okay now. I'm just worried that if they keep raising the rent, I have a side job. I've been saving. Good, Caroline. I have the Alaska voucher. She could port it out. Well, in the old days, about 4 or 5 years ago, Alaska was a real sucker for portability. I think I probably wore that state out. Okay. Now they get real tight ass about it when you try to port out of their state. So you can try, but I don't know it'll be successful. I'm just warning you. Look, I'll tell you a good story, guys. The best state, the stupidest state I ever dealt with as a consultant was Washington. And the city will live in infamy, Seattle. These people were so ballsy. They posted on national news they couldn't give vouchers away. Now, I was like a shark where there was blood in the water. I see this article. We have 5,000 vouchers. Nobody wants them. Oh, the fuck? What'd you say? Let me tell you something. I ran a choo-choo on that place, that city so badly. They never made that mistake again. In over a 6-month period, I ran over 300 clients through it. And you know what I did? I didn't put them, nobody moved to Seattle. We moved them vouchers right on out the state. Over 300. You know, I got audited after that. And it was suggested to me, and mind you, it was suggested to me that I not focus on picking places where people get vouchers, that the client should pick their own and not exploit the house. I've never thought in my mind I could be excused of exploiting a housing authority. Well, you know, if you act like an asshole, you publish something like that, a bad consultant would get you nothing. But what I did is I just ran a choo-choo on them. Y'all want to play the game? Let's play it. You can't give them away. Well, look, I've got lots of recipients that need a voucher. And so about 3-4 years ago, I robbed their ass blind. I mean, probably 300 to 400 vouchers in a 6-month period. We were porting them things. They were like cupcakes. We were having a giveaway, and we ported them all over America. They didn't know what was happening, man. It was by the time they realized they had been pillaged, it was too late. And so those were the good old days in my career when I could hit a state up. I mean, we went up to Pennsylvania too, man. I nailed that state, man, for years as a consultant. And we ported so much out of that state. And a lot of clients went on to live successfully on their vouchers. I quite enjoyed it. I mean, Pennsylvania, I would rank it second stupidest state out there when it comes to portability. So we had a porting fest. Alaska comes in for third. I don't think people from Alaska are stupid. I just think that they're super genuine there, and they think with integrity, and so they didn't expect that kind of thing. But my job was one thing and one thing only, and that was to ensure my clients got vouchers and ported it back to where they needed it, and not keep it in the state. Nobody wanted to go live in a snowstorm, and so I don't think Alaska's. I don't think anybody's falling off the potato wagon over there anymore either. So anybody wants to pick up my career where I left off, you're going to be in for a tough time, because I've already played every game in the book, and many of them have adapted to it. So, and of course, this year portability is expected to be a little bit more difficult, because as the administration has mentioned, and also HUD and its director, that with half the funding this year for vouchers, a lot of housing authorities can automatically deny portability. And so trying to get cooperation of both your housing authority and the forwarding housing authority in another state or county is going to be extremely difficult, because if you're operating a PHA or public housing authority at half the funding, and then you're suggesting that you're going to allow that voucher to go somewhere else, and then send the bill, and somebody's going to send you a bill and take your funding out of your county housing authority, they don't want to do that. So this year is going to be difficult. I think right now, portability, as I see it, it's okay. It's questionable right now. But as the closer we approach summer, which is peak season, portability is going to be almost pointless. You're not going to be able to do it, which is good. Not good for but it was good for me to retire when I did, because even I'm not a fool. I understand when things become too difficult. And after seeing 2025, I made a decision. I was like, look, there's no way. I'm not going to reinvent my company and have to relearn every new policy and procedure. And though they haven't changed that much, it's just that it went from being able to get clients, work with them to navigate the system and get vouchers over a 6-month period. And then it went to 8, then it went to a year. And then by the time we got 2025, man, we were looking at crazy ass times. And it wasn't because I believe that it would take that long because of PHA. I believe it's going to take 1 to 2 years, because it's so much more difficult without the money in place. And so the government ATM shut, right? Half the funding, and there's constant changes in the system. And so the difficulty level is simply, when I look at the cost of what I was charging for casework, which ranged anywhere from $495 all the way up to $1,200, okay? At the end, we reached a point where casework costs more than what any person with a fixed income could cost. It would cost them their whole fixed income check just to work with our office over a 12-month period. So we reached a threshold where to operate costs more than people could reasonably afford. That's when you have to retire. There's just no way I could offer it anymore. I mean, and then tell somebody, oh, by the way, it's going to be 1.5 to 2 years. Well, that's the decision. So if you really want to know why I retired, that's the exact reason why. We reached a certain threshold where timing and cost simply and difficulty level exceeded the ability of my office to perform. And also, it exceeds what people could reasonably afford. And you can't do payment plans with low-income people, even the nice little old ladies, because eventually they'll stop paying, okay? And shit, ain't nobody trying to do their job for free. All right, well, I see a lot of comments here from Caroline. You're winning most comments for the day, Ward. I've enjoyed having you, Caroline and Kim and Crystal and Sean. Let's see, California 329 SB. Oh, Senate bill. I forgot it. California's good with the Senate bills. So I enjoyed talking with everybody today. With no further ado, I'm going to go ahead and close this out. I know we've been all over the map. I've enjoyed having all y'all again. Today, I think, is Tuesday. So why don't we revisit each other Thursday? And maybe I can bring something productive. Remember, the first 10 minutes of all videos that I make are usually to the point. If you decide to stay more than that, including up to an hour, that's on you. Don't come here and tell me I'm long-winded. Don't tell me something I already know. All right. Have a great day. Bye-bye.